Hello, everyone. My name is Attorney Nishigaki. I'm a partner of GIT Law Office, and I feel quite honored to be part of today's prestigious meeting. Today, I'm going to give you some lecture or presentation about compliance. And also, I'd like to give you some comments on your coming presentations by each of you. So I'm so excited to be in this meeting. Thanks so much.
From now on, I'd like to have a lecture by Nishigaki Sensei regarding compliance. Over to you, Nishigaki Sensei.
Thank you so much. Today's title is Compliance in the Healthcare Industry. Next slide. What if a corporate scandal happened? And it's very obvious, but reputation damage is quite severe, and also indictment, arrest of employees and directors. And also, it's possible that it can lead to delisting and disqualification from bidding. And also, business suspension orders can be rendered by the government. There are many bad effects, and that can damage the company's business significantly. Now, the most important thing, at least in Japan, is brand. And the Taisho's brand is very good in Japan. And if it's something bad in Japan or outside, the brand image can be damaged forever, unfortunately. And a lot of Japanese companies' brands were somehow damaged by corporate scandals. You have heard Toshiba's case, Nissan, Carlos Ghosn case, and Olympus. These companies used to have very super good brands, but unfortunately, their brand image has been damaged significantly. It's almost impossible to recover a good brand image. So that's the most serious thing that we should avoid. Next slide, please. And today, I will talk about three things. One is basics of compliance, and the secondly, anti-bribery, and then the third is role of compliance functions. Some of you are quite new to this compliance field, so through this, I will discuss the basics of compliance, especially anti-bribery area, and also what you are expected to do. And of course, the aim is not just creating policies and rules, but to establish a truly effective compliance system throughout the Taisho Group. Next slide. Let me start with the first one, basics of compliance. And there are unfortunately, a lot of corporate scandals in the healthcare industry. And I will not read out all of them, but the first one is, of course, bribery or violation of industry codes and so on. And I understand that in each jurisdiction of you, there are, of course, anti-bribery laws, and also my industry codes applicable to the pharmaceutical industry. So compliance with these rules and laws are critical in the industry. Of course, that comes from interactions with HCPs. That's the key. And the second is off-label promotion, especially in the area of pharmaceutical drugs. Taisho has a lot of good OTC drugs, but also have pharmaceutical products for medical use. So if companies or some employees try to promote the drugs in a way not allowed or going beyond the PI or package inside, that could create a off-label promotion issue. That's quite serious. There are a lot of things like violation of privacy or securities laws and accounting laws and so on. In terms of food business, some management would try to somehow inflate sales by asking distributors to buy a bunch of drink products and then with some secret agreement to return the inventory if necessary, or by entering into a suspicious letter of intent or MOU. That's can be a typical accounting fraud, and especially for those entities which have factories, environmental law violation would be one of the issues. So there are a number of corporate scandals which can happen in the healthcare industry. And common features for significant corporate scandals are like lying, concealment, and self-benefiting by management. And again, in this industry, the largest risk comes from, I understand, the interactions with the HCPs, and also, as some of you mentioned, supply chain management is also quite important, for your business. Yeah. This is quite old case. Toshiba's accounting fraud case. But let me raise this one because it's still relevant in Japan. 2015, Toshiba announced that they inflated profits for over $2 billion. And it sounds quite significant, but for Toshiba, it was not so terribly big. But they inflated profits. And then, Toshiba's business has become in chaos, and they have been targeted by media, TV, and so on, and their brand image has been almost completely destroyed, unfortunately. And they are trying to recover, but still they are very struggling. Almost every week, there are scandals on newspapers and so on. So and this is the and Toshiba is used to be one of the finest Japanese companies with the best brand image, but now they completely lost their good brand image. So this is how scary corporate scandal can be. And the root cause, what happened there, first of all, in 2015, is that they did not have good corporate culture. And they had a very strict hierarchy where subordinates are not allowed to object or say no to supervisors in Asia. They are like army people. And then President Nishida at that time said to accounting department like this, the accounting team should just record the numbers as instructed. Work desperately, make at least 10 billion yen. This is the word to accounting people, not to sales. So, and this happened, and such wrongdoings called challenge in Toshiba, due the challenge, to accounting people. And this is like how Toshiba went wrong. So the reason why we are having this Asia Pacific compliance meeting is that we need to create a mechanism to stop such things, and management of each subsidiary wants to establish or achieve sales targets, but they are somehow tempted to do something wrong. So to avoid that, first we should establish a whistleblowing system, and also internal reporting mechanism, where when you find something wrong, you can immediately, or you should immediately report to the internal affairs team at the headquarters. So that's why we are doing this slide. And this is a kind of a basic approach to establish compliance system. Step one, as I mentioned, we should first conduct a risk assessment, and so to check where are the risks, because we have our compliance resources, of course, limited. So we should be very effective in allocating our resources. So first, we should conduct very risk assessment in a very conscious way, to very specific, so if you think that there is some risk in supply chain, for example, then what's the actual risk? Is that the interactions or the management of a particular distributor, like big supplier, or interactions with your joint venture former joint venture partner, or please be specific in conducting my assessment. And then the second thing is a tone at the top. This means that we recommend that you work together, your top management, to give good message to the employees about how important compliance is. And this is the step one. And then step two, organizational structure. And at the headquarters, of course, the internal affairs oversees your activities, and at the local operations, you are in the front line to establish a compliance system. And as some of you mentioned, Yuri-san, also Jin-san mentioned, clear policies and procedures should be established there. I think that you are working hard on this, and I mentioned it should be value-based, but also we should create very clear policies based on local laws and industry codes. And the compliance hotline, this is a global hotline system, where employees can report to headquarters directly without involving management at the local level. So this is a kind of new system, and because this is important, because if local management can check what's the contents of the reports, and local employees, your colleagues cannot use that kind of system. So this system is operating quite independently at the headquarters level, rather than local level. So independence of the system is the key. And of course, the trainings, and you have doing a lot of the trainings. And the third step, disciplinary measures. If there is a violation, the employee should be disciplined. And otherwise, employees do not abide by compliance rules. And continuous improvements and precautions for mergers and acquisitions, you may some like mergers and acquisitions. Taisho is quite active in buying, acquiring companies. And when you integrate new organization to your system, of course, you should pay close attention to that. Yeah. So that's overall the basic approach to establish compliance system. Next one, please. And then like, let me move on to anti-bribery specifically, because unfortunately in this region, anti-bribery is the risk and the ACP. There are some rogue or bad ACPs who request money from companies. Unfortunately, that's universal. Unfortunately, next one. And in this regard, there is a famous law called FCPA. And I feel like you have heard of this law, but it's a U.S. Law to punish bribery to foreign officials. I should go to the next slide. And this FCPA enforcement in the healthcare industry, and the health and you see a lot of application and enforcement in this industry. Teva Pharma, Novartis, and JM Pfizer, and all the big companies, and including Olympus, it's a Japanese company, subject to FCPA enforcement. They had to pay millions of dollars to the U.S. enforcement agents like DOJ or SEC. So, and I can tell you that almost all of them are related to ACPs. These like pharmaceutical and medical device companies wanted to sell their products to hospitals, and then ACPs, doctors and nurses, request money, and then they pay such money, establishing some strange programs, and if you prescribe one drug, we'll pay you $20 or something, and so that's the highest risk in this industry. Next one. And also there is similar law in the United Kingdom called the UK Bribery Act. Next one, please. And this is I should skip this. Next one, please. Also, Japan has similar law called Unfair Competition Prevention Act. Yeah, and this is to prohibit bribery to foreign officials. And there are only like several cases, but unfortunately, all of them happen in the Asia Pacific region. Next one. And this law is applicable when all part of action is done in Japan, or all a part of action is done by a Japanese national. And let me give you an example. For example, sorry for mentioning specific countries, but when, for example, for example, and this is sorry, just I mentioned this just an example. And if an employee, Indonesian employee at TPI, some like wanted to pay bribery to Indonesian official, and for example, they came to a factory to audit the operation, and the official found something wrong, and like if you want to continue your operation, you have to pay, for example, like $3,000, and then the Indonesian employee somehow made that payment, $1,000, without involving Japanese or Japanese headquarters. And this law is not applicable because it's conducted in Indonesia, no involvement of a Japanese person. So this law is not applicable. But if that the Indonesian employee cannot make $3,000 bribery, and they ask the supervisor, for example, Japanese national at the TPI for permission, by saying that I was asked to pay this money, but could you approve it? And then if the Japanese expert, the manager at the TPI approved it, this law is applicable. So because it was approved by a Japanese national, the second part, or part of action that done by a Japanese national. And if the Japanese national at the TPI reported to the headquarters about that, but then then the headquarters approved it. Of course, it's conducted in Japan, so the first part, all part of the action is done in Japan. So in this way, if that involves either a Japanese person or Japanese headquarters, this law is applicable. So could you move to the next slide, please? This is a very famous case in Thailand, and the company called Mitsubishi Hitachi Power Systems, MHPS, paid a bribery at the amount of 11 million baht. It's quite a significant amount. And they were asked to pay by a Thai port official, and then they have to pay this, and so they did that. And they were asked to pay the bribe, and then the Japanese headquarters discussed this, and actually one of the directors, just said, yes, this should be paid, and all of them should be arrested by the Tokyo prosecutor's office, and now they are fighting with the Supreme Court. Yeah, and so in this way, this Unfair Competition Prohibition Act is applicable. So Taisho is quite active in the Asia Pacific region, and if this happened, Taisho's, my point is that Taisho's good brand image can be easily damaged. So please pay close attention to that, to prevent any bribery in your organization. Next one, please. Yeah, maybe I should skip this page. Next one. And this is a local case in Japan. This is a very famous University's case happened last year. It's a quite interesting case. University is national university, and Professor Kamei asked Ono Pharmaceutical Company. Ono is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in Japan. And Professor Kamei asked Ono Pharma to pay 2 million Japanese yen, which is about 20,000 US dollars, to Dr. Kamei's NGO, non-profit organization called BAM Encouragement. But Ono Pharma refused to do that because it's Professor Kamei's own entity. If they pay that, that could be viewed as bribery. And instead, they paid the money directly to Mie University, where Professor Kamei is working, as donation. but the donation was like in exchange for prescriptions. If we donate this amount, Dr. Kamei will increase prescriptions, use of onerous drug accordingly. And the interest is that the donation, the money did not go to Dr. Kamei, but to Mie University. I understand that, like in Thailand or in your countries, it's very common to pay donations to university hospitals, and the most I understand the most big hospitals are government owned, right? And they're state owned. And in Japan, like this practice used to be quite safe because the donations made to the hospital and not to the money did not go to public officials or doctors. So that's why this is not a bribe. Well, the Tokyo prosecutor's office, the prosecutor's office regarded this as bribery because it was made in exchange for actual prescriptions. So, so this is like one of the examples where you should pay attention to. And the reason why I raised this is that even if it's somehow accepted in the industry as a business custom, it can become a criminal issue. So this sounds this case sounds like it's not a good thing to buy prescriptions by paying donation or whatever money. So yeah, please look at your operations in this way. Even if some practice is accepted as business custom, it can involve risks if that is not ethically correct. The next one, please. And then lastly, yes, I had a few minutes. I had so the discussion about the basis of compliance, and then the second one is anti-bribery, especially. And the third, I just briefly touch on roles of compliance functions. And the basic roles and the special roles. First, provide staff members with the consultation about the compliance issues. And in this regard, Jin-san, your plan for 2022 is good. Kamista-han, that's what you should do, to provide good consultation. You should not be viewed as a kind of regulator, but you should be a good contact person to consult with compliance issues together with the team members. And also approve transactions. For example, engaging in supply, new distributors and wholesalers, and or approve or disapprove gifts or entertainments. And also establish updated policies and procedures you are all working on. Basically, policies and procedures in a very clear way. And also update knowledge of local laws and industry codes. You have some pharma codes in the industry and so on. And they establish an annual compliance plan and conduct compliance trainings. These are the ones that you should do in a very general way. And I would add risk assessment in your operation. And also the special functions, of course, as I mentioned, Taisha has been put in like extra energy on whistleblowing system to raise awareness of the system is one of the key things. And also conduct the internal investigations. Like after this my presentation, the internal affairs, I will explain how you should do in terms of internal investigations when something bad happens. And also, assistant headquarters will actually complete questionnaires regarding corporate culture and report irregularities. And if once you find anything wrong, as I mentioned, in the operation, please report to the internal affairs at the headquarters. So that's all the things. And then, of course, the aim is to aspire for a truly effective compliance system. Be compliant together. That's the key word. And, so that's basically what I'd like to say today. So I discussed the basics of compliance and also anti-bribery risks. Certainly, I expected also the compliance officers. So I hope that this will be of some help to operation. Thank you. That's all.